up with some intro music. Hello. All right. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late. We're having some technical problems, but I think we're getting ready to go. Good morning, everyone. I think Craig and David from Clarity, you all kicked this off last time, so I'll let you do, and I'll be here for support and for. I'm just so everyone knows, when you ask questions and stuff, I'm going to be tagging questions, and I'm going to be trying to make sense of the crazy chat room. What the way this will go is and I think we'll do the same as last time. I'll interrupt if there's any very critically question that's let's just get this answer now, but we'll do questions at the end. I'll keep them all saved. If as I'm doing it, if you feel like I missed your question, you can just ask it again. But this is the second in a series of SEO talks from Podpage with the folks from Clarity, who are the experts in this. The first one was recorded, and there's a link to it somewhere, but I'll get the links and I'll put them in the Podpage dashboard at some point. And our framework for this, we're still experimenting with this whole concept, these webinars. And I think what we're going to try to do is we're basically going to do a set of 3 or 4 topics once a month. And so it'll last for 3 or 4 months, and then we'll just repeat that. And so please give us feedback on what's valuable to you. We got a lot of great feedback last time. And yeah, these are being created. We're trying to figure out how to make this useful for the community, because obviously SEO is a fairly personal thing. You're trying to accomplish your own SEO goals with your own keywords, with your own, podcasting goals. And so it's really hard to do generic information, but it's also really hard to do one-on-one consulting across thousands and thousands of customers. So we're trying to balance what can we do that's useful for everyone, but also everyone can take something from. And these are geared mostly from what we did last time. These are geared mostly for kind of you have to. It's again. It's generic in the sense that it should benefit everyone. It's not super tactical where it's go here and push this button. But we're getting the feedback and figuring out how to
structure these where there is some tactical, some theoretical, and all that. So anyway, no, that was spot on though, because I think what we learned from the first one is we were given some broad strokes, and today is more literally we're going to walk you through some tools that you can use, free tools. Google Trends, Ahrefs free keyword generator. We're going to be going into the actual stuff that I think the first one was more giving you the lay of the land. And then today we're really going to dive into leveraging blogs and other content, right, on your Podpage website, what you can actually be doing and how to get there. Not just, hey, do these things, write more blogs, end of webinar. Webinar's over, guys, go write more blogs. We're actually going to get into how you can find the topics, how you can even outline. We're going to talk all the way through that. So without further ado, let me just talk about today's topics. We'll go through the 3 main things. We're going to kick things off with topic and keyword research, right? We're going to actually go into how you can find these things. We got some stuff pre-prepared that you're going to see. Then we're going to go into writing content. Really, what does it take to write it? From tools you can use in outlining and how you can flesh that out. We are going to talk about AI softwares and really how you can leverage that. And then we're going to actually give some examples, some quality performing content, and then open it up as we did last time. We expect some questions, right? And like Brendan said, put them in there. He's going to be helping and curating those. We want to help in any ways possible. So let's dive in. And David, I think you'll kick us off and give us a little context of what the heck do we know here?
Yeah. So let's go into we kind of discussed briefly about the who is Clarity on the last one. I really wanted to kind of maybe go into why Clarity and SEO. So I'll go back 15 years, and Craig used to run an entertainment company with here locally. And we helped build his website as a friend. It was just a friendly thing that I did before we even got together to create our business, which became Clarity. I've been in business now for 15 years. So Craig says, hey, can you help me build a website? And I said, sure. So we get the website up, and he's like, cool, I'm sending people to it. Now can you help people find my website? And I was like, oh, that's the next step, because back in the day, it didn't really matter. And so then it became all right, what can we do? So it was a trivia company and a like an event in person company where they were doing like beer pong stuff. So it was like, okay, cool. How do we make sure then that we can rank for, trivia in Orlando or trivia events Orlando? And so that was the goal. And 15 years ago, within a few months, we got going. Why? Because all you had to do was just put Trivia Orlando 19 times on the homepage, and then another page, and then another page, and then you hit it in the bottom. Unfortunately, it's not the same way that used to be 15 years ago, but there are tactics and things that are relevant for today that we're going to discuss about. And we're just showing this example. This is a client of ours, and the performance this is a small graph, but over the last 5 years, you can kind of see how the site's performed, and it's again it's on its way up. So we've been doing this, like I said, for 15 years. A lot has changed in 15 years. The things that we did 15 years ago are not what we do today. I also joke that probably what we even did 2 years ago is slightly different from what we're doing today, but that's just because Google is kind of always kind of moving, grooving, changing, but they are usually pretty clear about what they're looking for. And so we're trying to, again, come up with ways that you guys as podcasters can help to create content to, appease Google. So that's our goal here. So
David, I didn't see the graph. Is it sharing? That might be just me not seeing it.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sharing my slide. I don't know. Can you see it now?
There it is. Now I see it.
Oh, okay.
Now I see it.
Gotcha. Technical difficulties squared away. There we go. And there we are. So that's the graphs. This just kind of shows an example of a client of ours just over the last 5 years using a tool called Ahrefs that we have. This is just like public knowledge, so okay for us to share it. Again, just showing that some of the things that we've done, and all this again is very things that you guys can do, and again there'll be a lot of actionable items throughout this. So one of the big topics that we're really going to talk about today is really about using kind of your blog to help promote your site. And the reason why we love writing blogs and writing content is because at some point, like if you are even if you are a podcast, right, at some point, you have your episode pages, which is great. There's tons of information there. You have your homepage, great information about it. But then there's other places that you need to probably produce content to help kind of let Google know who you are, what you do. And blogs have become that. There's many different ways that you can call a blog. You can call it, some people call it news, some people call it updates, some people call it, there's somebody that calls it a newsletter, whatever you want to call it. All we're talking about is producing content that helps rank for, usually it's a lot of questions that people are asking or just things that could be assistive to what people are doing. It's really easy. The benefits of why kind of some of the content and the writing in the blog makes sense. It creates new, fresh content. Even if you produce blogs from, we have ones from 10 years ago, you can go back and refresh them too. They're easy to publish. Podpage has an easy way to do it. The dreaded WordPress also has it. I know in some people's feelings, but that's what made WordPress really famous, is their blogging platform. And there's even other blog-only platforms that exist out there. Again, your blog could also help promote your episodes. So it's that whole, we talked about internal linking last time, right? So you're able to link back and forth. And then there's other opportunities, right? Yes. Podcasting is an audio way to get your name out there. But some people, like might be in an office and I might not be able to listen to your podcast, but maybe you could talk about via a blog post that somebody could read. So there's other opportunities for people to take in your content. Again, something that everybody can do. So we made a quick little video. It's just quick 10 minutes. It was just a lot easier to do it than to possibly screen share or possibly have, the tool be slow, or, we can kind of get through some of the things. So we'll kind of switch to that for about 10 minutes and we'll be right back to kind of continue.
That are really transformative in the process. So we're going to talk about Google Trends, 100% free, literally Googling itself. We're going to look at then the Ahrefs free keyword tool and kind of SEMrush has a bunch of free things once you sign up. So I kind of want to walk you through. I'm just going to pick a topic. Again, we were talking through in the last kind of webinar, some people were giving their subjects. So I'm going to look for phishing, right? We're going to look at phishing in general first. I'm on Google Trends first. So let's look at it. Let's look at it from a search term perspective. I don't want to look at the past day when I'm looking at Google Trends. I want to look at a much longer timeline. Even a year probably doesn't really give me as much because that could be seasonality, right? So I'm looking maybe the past 5 years or the entire kind of time that Google offers. They give you literally from 2004. But I can tell you what I already see is phishing, for example, is a seasonal search term, right? So now I can get a little more focused and see, okay, through the summer, things really peak, and then they kind of bottom out in the winter. This makes a whole lot of sense, right? Because you can't fish as much probably when it's super cold unless you're in the warm weather places. Now, what this can show you is that people are searching these terms with more and more frequency certain times of the year, right? Sorry, that's the last 5 years. So I can go right into the last year. That can even help you when you're strategizing what type of content you're going to be putting out. So let me look a little deeper, right? So maybe fly fishing specifically, very different from fishing, right? Okay, it's got a very similar trend. So it might have exactly the same kind of peaks and valleys, and it does. So for fly fishing, let me see if bass fishing is the same. Yep, very similar over the 5 years. I think we're going to see the same kind of thing where it's a little more action during the summer. So what you can see there is from Google Trends, kind of what's going on in terms of how many people are actually typing that into Google. That's what that graph tells you. An interesting thing as you scroll down is you'll be able to see different states where it's a little hotter than others. And that could be really relevant for as you're doing part of your content strategy. Maybe let's say you have a fishing podcast and you're like, oh man, where should I spotlight? Or where should I write about? Because maybe I'm blogging about things that relate to my episodes. Well, it looks like Arkansas, for example, has the most search interest over the last 12 months for bass fishing, right? That can be insightful if you want to kind of feature the coolest spots in Arkansas, or reach out to some of the influencers or people that you know in Arkansas. Have a guest on your episode that's from Arkansas because you know that area is searching the most. Again, some other information that it gives you as you go down, you can look at related topics to that keyword and you can look at related queries. Related queries meaning like you've probably seen this in Google, people also ask or people search for, and I'm going to take it right to that. So if we go to regular Google and we start typing bass fishing, it's going to give you kind of some of those things that are those related topics. I happen to be in the Orlando area as I'm recording this, so you're going to see that right here. Same thing if I'm typing fly fishing. It's already knowing where I am from my IP address. So it's like, okay, he's in Orlando Winter Park. Oh, he might need to get some gear. So that's where you're seeing it. Now, that's kind of level one where you can see what it's saying and what it thinks are those associated searches. We want you to actually be Googling these terms to see what are you up against? What type of keyword is it? Like fly fishing, for example, Wikipedia coming up first. That makes sense. It's kind of defining what it is. But something interesting I see right after it is a how to fly fish beginner's guide. And then we would want to actually like look at that and be like, okay, interesting. TakeMeFishing.org. Again, I don't know much about the fishing industry, but we want you to actually look at the results. You see, that's a beginner guide. National Park Service talking about fly fishing. Another what is fly fishing beginner guide. So that means Google's telling us that this particular keyword, it wants to serve what is information, right? Rather than if I type in, I'll just give an example. I'll type in 55-inch TV. It knows it's a product, for example, right? It knows exactly that this is a product search. It's not going to give me a what is a 55-inch TV. It's going to straight up try to sell me 55-inch TVs, right? So again, if we're doing bass fishing, I would expect it to be very similar. Well, how to catch bass, right? So this is a little nuance, right? Google is telling us that for this one, different than fly fishing, it felt like it needed to explain to people. I think that's very interesting. This keyword, it's a what is kind of thing where you're seeing that if you wanted to rank for this, you'd want to find content and build out content to help educate people on how how to fly fish, beginner guide. Bass fishing is right into how to catch that bass, which is very similar, right? But it seems like there's more knowledge around bass fishing, at least in my opinion. So let's take that to the free keyword planner tool and let's see, right? Let's look at bass fishing and check out that volume. So right here on the keyword tool that Ahrefs offers, 100% free, you can get a lot of great information. You type it in, we'll have this link for you so you can play with this a million times. It gives you the exact keyword and then a couple columns I want to go over. KD is keyword difficulty. That is an estimate on how difficult it is to rank for that keyword. 0 being the easiest, 100 being the hardest. It even is color coded. We like to see stuff in the greens. It's not that these ones that are a little more difficult are impossible. They're just more competitive. You have bigger players in the game, more people that have more links. So it is a little more difficult. Sometimes it could be a lot more difficult if it's in the 80s or 90s. But knowing the keyword difficulty helps you know what you could go after. Volume's another really interesting one. It's the average number of monthly searches in the United States. So bass fishing having more searches. Another cool thing that the free tool offers, you can go to this questions area and it gives you some more insights into some of the topics that do have some volume, less volume, but also usually easier difficulty. So if you're thinking, let's go the route of you're going to write a blog to support, you had a great episode about bass fishing, for example, maybe even in Arkansas, who knows, and you're writing a blog that you want to build kind of authority around the topic, and then you're going to link over to your episode page. It could be a how to bass fish or bass fishing 101, but some headers and some topics you'll want in that would be what to use for bass fishing, what size reel for bass fishing, how to set up a fishing pole for bass. Those would be great kind of subheadings in a great article about bass fishing. Now, if you're only doing a podcast, think of it like segments of your podcast. You're going in there and you're saying, all right, I'm going to spec out what I want that episode to look like. Because again, on my episode page, you might be using your transcript. You might be putting in some kind of key takeaways. We do encourage that. Again, the more text content that is on the actual pages, whether you're using just the episode pages or blogging, the better, right? So that it actually can crawl that and know that you know what you're talking about bass fishing. So this free keyword tool is fantastic. We'll look at fly fishing just for fun to see if bass fishing does have indeed more volume. No, fly fishing, more volume, more people searching it, more difficult as well. So I think that's something interesting where the rod itself is a little bit easier to rank for, but that's probably a product keyword. So if I go fly fishing rod, I'm going to expect to be up against, immediately into a product, right? So Orvis, that's probably a brand. Tenkara, these are all brands. This looks like a company. Well, these look like brands that might make it. I'm going to look, see, Orvis might be that we make it. Yeah, they actually make the rods. It'd be interesting to see if that third result, Red's Fly Fishing, if that's something that kind of aggregates and has all kinds of different ones. Yeah, it's even selling used rods. So it's very interesting. As you can look and see, it's important to take it from looking at the trend to know, okay, I'm on something that's good or not, there's seasonality or not, where it's acting, then actually Googling the word to just look at the real results. What is showing up? Google will tell you this stuff just because it's publicly available. It's right here. You just drop it in. There it is. And you can see like how Google perceives that keyword. Then you take it to a free tool like this and you can really see where the volume is, and using keyword difficulty. Okay, what are some of the things that where can I find my opportunity, right? What is fly fishing? What is a tippet in fly fishing? And that again, from the two perspectives of either you're going to kind of plan out your episode by having kind of these talking points, knowing that then the transcript or the key takeaways that you're going to post on the episode page are a little easier. Or again, if you're going the blog route where you're going to write a blog about it, these topics and subheaders can be the sections of your outline. I do want to quickly kind of touch on also SEMrush. And again, these links will be available for you. They do have a free opportunity. We really like Ahrefs and their free tool gives you a lot of great data there. But SEMrush, again, has additional things. And I think that's something we can dive into on another webinar as well. Or again, if you guys have some specific questions, we'd love to get those emails and kind of connect with you on that. But we wanted to show you that right here on SEMrush, they do offer a similar thing where you can use their keyword magic tool. You can go through it. The reason I'm featuring this blog is you got to actually sign up, right? They want you to sign up. Whereas what we really like about this free keyword generator tool from Ahrefs is you could just use it. You could just plug it in real time, just go for it. You don't need to sign up. SEMrush, it's fine. You can sign up for free, but then they're going to bombard you, email you, and try to get you to pay. But they have a similar kind of thing. You'll get a little more depth, to be honest, out of SEMrush. And again, if you've got questions where you want to dive that deep into something like that, please don't hesitate to email, and we'll really be able to kind of grow a conversation from there. But the biggest factors of topic research and then actually keyword research is looking at Google Trends, Googling the terms themselves, and then checking the difficulty and volume in the free keyword planner. So that's kind of the totality of how we think for free you could be looking and finding those really awesome opportunities of what works in and around your industry.
All right. So we talked through a couple things there, a lot of softwares that, again, are freely available for you guys to really dive through. So let's have David kind of walk us through aspects of it, starting with researching topics. We're going to go through them a little bit more focused and then open it up for questions.
Cool. Yeah. So I really just wanted to talk about the two kind of starters where Craig kind of began, which was Google Trends and actually just using Google as a research tool. And what's really just helpful about the Google Trends, it just kind of lets you know like what's happening, when's happening. It's a good kind of starter research just to know, how busy a keyword is having it, right? So if let's say you're gonna search Super Bowl, if you look at the graph in the period of your February when the Super Bowl is happening, you're going to see a big spike and then it'll go back down again. But now the way Google Trends works is it's telling you that it's trending during that time, and it'll give you a score between 0 and 100. It's not like 100 users or 100,000 or 100 million. It's just 0 to 100. But then you can compare other kind of keywords to that to well, during that time, does fly fishing even kind of even get close to it. But so that's where the Google Trends is. A lot of times too, underneath where Craig was kind of showing, you could see some regional action. You could see other kind of keywords that kind of go with it or other things that are done. So those are just it's just helpful in just the research aspect of what you're doing. And then the other thing that we like to tell people to do is just plug in Google. Craig brought up a really good example there about 55-inch TV. The first 12 things that you're seeing are people, a Best Buy or other places selling you TVs, right? You're probably not going to it's not going to be easy at all to write a blog post on it. So if you can look at those results, understand what are in there, and then know, is that content that I can make? Or is that content that I don't sell TVs, so don't even bother kind of going after some of those keywords. And again, you can find, as you start typing in, you saw how Google kind of auto completes things, right? You can then figure out that those are usually keywords that Google has seen before, right? You're not the first person typing that in, which is just helpful to know that chances are there is some volume to help you out. It doesn't hurt to start with longer keyword phrases as well, right? We're not talking about one word, we're talking about multiple words. And a lot of times the longer you go, you can get started somewhere and begin to start ranking for smaller searches to kind of work your way up as Google kind of trusts your site more.
Cool. And I've been talking in the chat with a couple of people as well. So when you're talking about finding keywords, SEMrush, again, and those links, we'll make sure they are available. It does give a lot of information, as does the paid version of Ahrefs. But what we really like about the free tool that Ahrefs offers is, and you saw that in the screen share video, it'll give you the volume, the difficulty, and that's about it, right? That really helps you to not have to dive too deep into the craziness that's offered because there's a ton of data, right? But if you're just using the tool, a good starting point to some of the questions I think Doreen was mentioning, put in the keywords about your show, right? Start maybe with the show name. Don't be offended if there's no volume for your show name. It might be that either people aren't searching that, or again, it's just not something that's well known. Now, if your show topic is in your show name, that's when things will start to heat up and you'll start to see there might be some volume there. But one of the biggest things of when you're using the keyword generator, when you're going through there, is you want to probably kind of play a little bit of a game with yourself. And I think I was talking about it in the comments there with Doreen, tangential content that's around the industry. Think about the episodes that you did. Don't just think about your show. Think about the individual episodes, the individual conversations, and start testing those keywords. What you'll find is sometimes there's crazy amounts of search volume about something you would not have expected. You can even search guest names. If you're getting guests on your show that, again, are well known or out there or have brands that are out there, you kind of knowing that can help your episode pages, the actual page performance, because what you put as the title and then what kind of headers you use as you're making I think when you're in the back end of Podpage, if you're making something larger, you know what I mean? When you're going to select the size of the actual text, you can make it what's known as an H2. You don't have to know the SEO juice because Podpage did it for you. But as you're making those headers more visually appealing, you're actually sending signals to the algorithm. That's what's so great about having a system that's kind of contained that way. So this free generator just lets you go in unlimited times. You can see there, it's got a little, I had it on United States when I took that, but I know we have some international watchers here. Just toggle that to your country because that'll give you the more accurate data for your specific country. We're in the US, so I'm always basing it off of that. But again, it's a free tool. There's no limit to the amount of times you can kind of play and generate there. And if you remember from the video, which again, this will be available for you to rewatch, it gives you additional phrases. Just like when you're about to Google something and it pre-populates, pay attention to that. Those are some of those keyword opportunities. That's Google kind of helping you, saying people are also looking for this when they're looking for that. That can help you as you're structuring what's going to go on that page. So now that you've found some keywords, let's talk about actual content writing. David, if you can move it to the next one. AI is a big thing.
Real quick, just to remind everyone, feel free to keep putting questions in the chat. I'm going to be tagging them and then we can go back to them a little bit later, but don't forget to be asking questions.
Yes, we do love the questions, any and all. So I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of walk through some of the AI stuff that's going on here, because while I started with David, I think he gave you that kind of origin story 15 years ago. I was writing every word that was on every page, and we did that, and our team has done that for years and years and years. And then AI came out, ChatGPT, Jasper, Claude, Copilot, Gemini. There's going to be more. And using them is a benefit. We are very pro using these tools. What you'll find in the conversations that we would have with you here or one-on-one is what we don't recommend is just outputting, like telling it to write you the blog and then posting it without looking at it. That's where things can be a real big miss. We're really wanting you to actually use these tools. And in a couple slides, we'll go through that a little bit better. But not that you're just taking the output, posting it as if it's your own. There's that 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes where you make sure it's in your voice, where you speak to your intended reader. It is all about the reader's experience. SEO is at that level. We were joking in the comments earlier. You used to be able to put keywords in the dang footer and hide them in white text and it would work. That is just not the case anymore. The technology innovated. So please don't ignore these tools. And I'll give you an example on the next slide here of one that can help you get the key takeaways and the key points for your show. We love using otter.ai. We actually have it in our meetings because it takes a transcript of the live meetings, and then we can actually communicate with the transcript. You can chat with the dang transcript and it'll give you the key points. So think about that. You've got your podcast episode, you run the audio or video through Otter. It takes a couple minutes, and now you can connect with it and say, hey, Otter, what are the key points from this episode? Hey, what did I say about XYZ? What did I say about this? You can actually do that in here by using one of these tools. That's why we don't want you to be afraid of these tools. We want you to embrace them. You can punch up your episode page for the key takeaways or the key points within literally single-digit minutes because of a tool like this. You don't have to rack your brain and go back to your notes and think, oh, what did I say? What did I do? Run it through Otter, ask it for the key points, and then you can literally use those on your episode page. And why we keep saying like episode page or blogs or things like that is your episode pages can absolutely rank, and they do rank. They're set for success, and we'll go up. We'll kind of touch on that in just a moment. So, but before I go into those examples, my last thing I want to cover for the AI tools is outlining the actual copy. Here's a snippet from ChatGPT so you can see it. It's very powerful. And as you ask it questions about outlining pieces of content, it can really guide you. Now, I'm not saying you can't take it all the way, but what we do recommend, most people will go right in and immediately tell it to write an article or write a blog post. We feel like that's a big mistake. You're missing a lot of opportunity to get a better output. It's always about the output ultimately. So what we recommend is that first step, talk to it about outlining it. This gives you an option. You could also write the piece yourself if you want. You have the time. Time is up to whatever you've got going on for your show and the growth you're doing. The outline allows you to go section by section and kind of see like, okay, wow, this is what makes a cohesive article. Now you have an opportunity. Look at those subsections: types of fishing environments, seasonal considerations, licensing and regulations. Go back to that Ahrefs free tool and put those keywords in, and you'll see why it's good to kind of plan this all out. And ChatGPT out, and I'm not GPT agnostic here. We're agnostic about it. It doesn't matter whether you're using one of the other ones or whatever you're comfortable with, but using it as a tool to help you get that base level outline. You can take it from the outline and say, hey, can you write it now? But still, I want to be very clear. We recommend taking that extra time at the end, even if it's just a few minutes, for you to put it in your own voice. Think of like newspapers and how those become, are now all online. Originally they weren't, but now everything's online. People are trying to write to perform better for the user. Think about your listener, or think about someone that's going to read something that's going to send them to your show, and add that extra couple minutes at the end. That's going to be an invaluable piece of it. So let's go into a few examples so you can see. The first one being a quality episode page. And this is just baked into what Podpage offers as it pulls your episode stuff, and then you have the opportunity to put show notes or extra information. We're recommending you put some extra information. Using Otter, for example, you can take those key takeaways. But here's an example of a episode page becoming a featured snippet for the stuff. Literally, when someone's typing, who is Emma Cruises or what is Emma Cruises, that's the brand name from this episode, it is the featured result. And that is just from a episode page in the same kind of structure that every Podpage site has. And that's a powerful thing to leverage, especially if you knew you had the opportunity to rank for something ahead of time based on your planning for your episodes. So that's just one example. A second example here is how your episode pages can actually be competitive with established websites. I know that's a little bit tough to see. So what you have up there is a keyword, credit card hacks 2022, just a term that was searched. The immediate results are like Fidelity.com, Bankrate, YouTube, and then a Podpage website, ahead of Expensify, ahead of other banks. Why that is because Google's not only looking for you to have authority. They're not only looking for like New York Times. They're looking for the best information possible, and it's actually crawling all the words on the page. So this is an example of how an episode page can actually show up in top rankings up against massively huge companies just by how it's built right now. And the only thing you've got to do is make sure you add text, more words to those episode pages so that you give Google the chance to find it. So improving those pages, take it from just the transcript and the chapters to add a synopsis, add those key takeaways, link between the pages. Podpage allows you to do that. That's kind of the next level step here, where rather than just a transcript, which isn't going to give you the full value, you're giving actual like bulleted lists, those key takeaways like we were talking about just a moment ago. That's going to perform a lot better than just a transcript. And then finally, an example of a blog that has the same exact opportunity, that by using the Podpage blog on, David, just one more slide, they can rank in organic search. And again, I know you probably can't see this, but this is a tax hacks 2023, or how to save on taxes in 2023. This was a blog on a Podpage site that's showing up next to CNBC, next to NerdWallet, next to US News Money. And those sites are massively established with a bajillion backlinks, and a Podpage podcast using the blog functionality can rank just like that. And that's without again, an SEO coming in and writing the content. That's just the user writing the content, using the elite tools and making sure everything's kind of lining up like that. It's just using the tools that are baked in. These things can absolutely rank. So I know I went a little longer than I wanted to. I want to open it up for questions. We have just one more, I think, slide. That's a fun quote. Every problem is a gift. Without problems, we would not grow, right? So think of your SEO as just a problem that you have to solve. If you're into it, if you're interested in that, it's just a problem that you have to solve. So again, I know I could talk on this for days. I want to leave time for questions. So Brendan, if you want to pop back in and kind of guide us on the question flow. I apologize for going a couple minutes long there. I get hyped about this stuff.
No worries. That was great. So, okay, let me see. I'll start with an easy one. So, DJ is saying, drinking from a fire hose, will there be a replay? Yeah, we'll post a link to this and the first one a couple places. I'm trying to build an area within the Podpage dashboard to see the stuff, and we're also going to start posting SEO information to our help desk. And so I'll include these videos for these webinars in our help desk. So that'll be in there. Let's see. Let's go back to the beginning. This was during the talk about the keyword generator.
Yep. So would you start with the names of your podcast? Absolutely. Using the free tool, or if you're in there using the SEMrush credits, I would do that. But taking it to that next level, the tangents are what's key. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, don't get lost at if like a branded keyword within Ahrefs is not accurate, right? If you might be getting 100 searches, but Ahrefs might say 10. So don't get lost sometimes in some of those numbers as well. But sometimes there's plenty of at some point, you might have some of that brand data. Also to be aware of the tools that we're talking about here, like Ahrefs or SEMrush, their data and everything are all estimates. And there is a little bit of a lag sometimes on some of the things. So, just kind of know that, like in the example of the keyword tool, it tells you when the last time kind of Google took it all in, or when Ahrefs or SEMrush has taken in that data. So you can kind of see how often they're kind of updating some of their results. So just something to be aware there.
But yeah, the more things you're plugging into that free tool, the better. Again, I don't know exactly your show, but the more you're kind of playing with that, and I know I mentioned it, but think about the guests you're having, think about the topics and be searching those, because I think maybe you'll get excited like I do when you see something that has a lot of volume and a lower difficulty. There's just opportunity there. That gets me hyped up.
Here's one that's not a direct question to you all. It was actually a conversation, but I thought it'd actually be useful because this does come up from time to time. Someone who goes into the Google Search Console, which is extraordinarily confusing at times, and they see that basically Google says, we know these pages exist, but we are not indexing them. What's typically, are there any tactics there?
So somebody mentioned go in and request indexing again. If you've done that, I would say you're on the second time of doing it. There's probably two things to think about. Number one, I would also take that URL and put it into Search Console, the performance, where you could see how it's ranking. Because sometimes in a perfect world, Search Console is telling you everything you need to know. Sometimes it is ranking, but it comes up in that report. That report is, there's a lag in that report. If you've checked there, it's not showing up, and then you've requested indexing 2 or 3 times, and it's still not showing up in your performance report, then I would say there's probably 2 things you can do. You can maybe change your URL and your title. Maybe what you're going after is not something that Google either gets enough traffic on, that it knows what it needs to rank you for, or I would also say maybe it's time to send some more internal links to that page, right? So do you have blog posts? Do you have other episodes that you can kind of link to it? So that way Google can hopefully find it. It's a question of, there's either 2 things. It's either A, can Google find it? And B, is the keyword of that page makes sense for Google to understand it?
So make sure you're going in there. It looks like Mike and/or Jimmy are using Google Search Console. Major 2 thumbs up on that. But there's a button in there when you're looking at that discovered but not indexed. You click that, and you can see the individual pages. Click on them and request indexing. You can absolutely request indexing. And that really, a lot of the times, absolutely works. But David gave you a couple things if it doesn't. David, you want to dive in on this one, the transcripts? I touched on it a little bit, that the total transcript, not as good as some of the bullet points, but go ahead.
Yeah, it is helpful so that way, you know, Google and users can find stuff about you. So that's maybe more of a UI UX thing about how people are taking in your podcast. Does it help with SEO? Yes and no. I think we maybe even talked about it in the last one. Chances are a transcript is the spoken word. Spoken word is different from the written word. Google can tell the difference between the two, and because it just doesn't have the same punctuation, doesn't have headers, doesn't have things that break it up. If it's just if it's broken down by speaker and everything, that's just not a natural kind of way that it's easy for Google to understand it. However, it does understand that that's there, but it's not a huge ranking signal. But it doesn't hurt to have. It's not going to hurt you, but it's more probably for the user than it is probably for Google.
Yeah, and I guess I would add there's a big advantage to transcripts when it comes to accessibility. So some people who are hard of hearing can read the transcript. That's helpful for them. So there's other benefits to transcripts besides that. We also on Podpage automatically tag the transcript in a way where we're legitimately saying to Google when they look at your page, like, this is a transcript. So it's good for just being able to serve it up to them. So I always encourage transcripts. I think there's going to be a lot more that people can do with transcripts when it comes to AI. That will be helpful to have the text written out, but so I wouldn't think of it as only should I do it for SEO or not? There are other benefits to it also. Here's one.
Okay, so internal linking, what that is that, like, because you're allowed to go in and actually mess with the text on the episode pages or blogs, the literal link button, it looks like a chain up top when you're putting in a link, as if you were linking to your Facebook to go off-site. We want you guys thinking of how to link within your site. It's one of the most powerful things of SEO, because what's happening all the time is those crawlers are going through the web, kind of seeing everything, and the way they follow things is through links, right? That's a dumbed down version. That's the Craig version. David and Brendan could give you a much more, I think, technical version. But by linking, let's say you're on let's say you did write a blog. You did write a blog, and you had the phrase, because you interviewed me. You interviewed Craig from Clarity. When you said Craig from Clarity in your blog, you would highlight that, hit the link, and link over to the episode page where that lives. That's an internal link within your own website that actually helps Google. Now, Craig from Clarity is not a great search term. I'm going to throw that out there. But many of the other ones would be things about your episodes. Go ahead, David.
Maybe Craig talked about keyword research, right? So you would have the keyword research would be your anchor text that you would link that up. So that way you're thinking about, how do I help Google understand what that page is about? That if it followed that link, would it know what it's clicking on and getting to? And when, when Google sees that keyword and the page is about that, it helps Google understand it. It's the same as that you would help a user to find it too.
Let me give it a dream scenario. And this is only in a vacuum of like unlimited time. And I realize there's not, but in a perfect world, there would be some sort of blog or article to link over to every episode. If there's keyword volume, some of your episodes, I'll be blunt about it, might not have a whole lot of volume. You might be talking about something that's pretty niche, right? I had a podcast that was super niche, and that's okay. We were doing our episodes and we weren't really thinking we were going to get jillions of people to come on. But if there is volume in a perfect world, you'd have some piece of content on your site that can link to another. Right? When we're building websites for people, it's always really easy. Low-hanging fruit is they probably have some sort of services, they do something, and then you write blogs that link over to those service pages, right? So for y'all, it's articles, blogs, news, whatever you want to call it. It's the same functionality linking to your episode pages.
Gotcha. Cool. The only other thing I was going to say is we do automatically, if you say, all right, this episode's in the category of this category is fly fishing, this episode is, or this blog post is, and then you post another one about fly fishing, and you also say that, we'll list on the right, if you have a sidebar turned on, we'll list links to that. The negative about that is we're just putting the title and linking the title. So it's a little less intentional than if you're writing like something and you link that. So it's one of those things that I wish we could help more with, but it's something that you have to actually do yourself to make it.
It's so nuanced.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to. I was going to ask Ray. You said, should you give your website on the blog post? I'm not totally sure what you mean by this, so if you wouldn't mind just rephrasing the question, we can get to it. I'll look for your response. Because kind of a theoretical question, but I'd be curious to know what you all think.
I like it though. I like it though. David, you might have a take on this too. So it's one of those, it depends, right? That we always like to answer it that way, but not right now. And here's what I could tell you. We've played with a lot of these, and there are some there's literally like SEO.ai. There's ones that are going to tell you it's going to do the things, and it just isn't there yet. Theoretically, AI can probably do damn near anything on computers at some point. I just don't know if that's going to be next year or literally 42 years from now. But the tools that are easily available, the ChatGPT, Jasper, I was playing with Gemini, Copilot, they're not great at giving accurate keyword data. They're actually bad at it. They get into you probably heard them call hallucinations, or they lie because they're trying to give you an answer, but it isn't connected to like Ahrefs, or it isn't connected to SEMrush, and Google itself doesn't offer that keyword data that way. So the problem with a lot of these tools, I'd be a lot more interested in one that's coming from SEMrush and Ahrefs, and they are rolling out these products, by the way, where the writing is more locked in on the actual keyword data. Someone was asking about prompts as well. So that's a whole nother topic that maybe could become one of the hacks for next month even, because if that's of interest to a lot of people, constructing a prompt and making sure if you've done the keyword research ahead of time, you put that into your prompt, you get a better output than if you just say, hey, write this article. But I don't see it reconfiguring SEO's industry in the near term, in the next couple of years, because the technology, it's not their biggest focal point. Let's just be honest about it. There's less people working on that, and it's not yet connected to the results. David, I don't know if you had any other take on that.
No, you ended it by talking about what I was going to kind of mention about is that there's an algorithm, right? And the algorithm I started off with saying 15 years ago was very different from how it is today. It was very different from 5 years ago. So I do believe that, is there kind of a way that you can use AI right now and win a little bit? Yes, but I think it's a short-term win, not a long-term win. I do also, AI, as a reminder, is just the regurgitation of content that was already fed into it. So if you're interviewing somebody and getting information from that episode, that's already new information that probably is expert level content that should already rank better than what an AI would output. So you could use that expert level content, like Craig was saying, put it into AI to help you maybe write up the content, the outline, what you're going to talk about. But using AI to write the content, I don't think, while yes, there is short-term wins right now, it's not going to be in the long term. It's no difference than the keyword stuffing worked 15 years ago. It doesn't work today.
All right, this is the clarification to Ray's earlier question.
Yep. No, because you're on the same site. So that's not the same as the kind of internal linking we're talking about here. What you're suggesting there is a great thing to do if you're having stuff that's off site. If a friend of yours is going to blog, or you're on someone else's show, you absolutely want them to put your URL in there to get over to you. But what we're talking about when we're talking about internal linking would be that if you have a blog post, for example, about if yours is Learn Polish podcast. Now, I don't know Polish, but I'll just base it on there's probably different language things you go over, right? Whether you're doing it in units and series, maybe you're talking about verbs or nouns or questions or different things like that. If you had a blog that maybe did a rundown, maybe the top 10 things you can say if you want to order food at a restaurant, right, in Poland, and you actually then talk about those things. And if one of those phrases is something you maybe talked about in an episode, you would highlight that phrase and link over to the episode. You wouldn't want to, like, at the bottom of your blog, put the same URL for your website.
Okay, cool. Ray, if that doesn't clarify, just go ahead and ask again. Let's see. Here's a one. Where will I be able to find this video? I'm actually going to create, hopefully by the end of this Q&A session, an article on our help desk that will embed all the videos that we've done for this. And so I'll update at the end of this. But if you go to the help desk and you just search webinar videos, you should be able to find it in about 10 minutes. So let's see.
David, you want to talk specifically about kind of like episode titles versus messing with URLs?
Yeah. So episode title and URL, they're definitely different. While I know a lot of times when Podpage pills it, it could match it up as the same. You're very welcome to go in there and change both. There is definitely an ability, like if your episode titles on Apple or Spotify are not as maybe keyword focus, that's where you can do a little bit more of that on your site or on on Podpage or wherever you're hosting your episodes for search. So it should allow you to be able to kind of get the most of it. You can have a 100-character long URL. It doesn't matter. Google will pick it up, but you have to think again of the user experience on how they're taking it in and what they see. Google doesn't actually show you the URL anymore. It actually just shows you the title, or it's a truncated URL most of the time if it is showing you how it's set up. So just something to pay attention to, because back in the day, it used to show you and kind of cut it off. So you can get away with editing that to something that maybe is more keyword specific, more oriented for search at that point. Because at this point, the reason why you're putting it on probably a page is for search or to help people kind of find it or the topic.
Let's see. I wish you could hire someone to do all this for me. I didn't know if you all had, we've talked a little bit in the past about this, and I don't know if it's the next webinar or when we want to get into it, but it would be nice for there to be some sort of resource. Like if someone doesn't have the time, what would you all recommend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we are working on that. We're working on figuring out how to, and maybe this is good to propose it, and then you guys can say what we were thinking is, it's hard to figure out from our end what people don't have time for. Some people like writing, other people don't want to write. So really from you guys, it would always be interesting to know what you need the most help with. If it was like finding the keywords, getting the topics, what blog should I write? That's what we've been working with Brendan to kind of figure out an offering that we could present that would be cost effective, but also maximum impact. That's really our whole goal, even with our recurring clients. What's the maximum impact we could have? And that's where learning a little bit more about the show, looking at kind of the keywords around it, that's where I think some of that can come together. But I did see someone even responded to that, though. So there's some people within this community even that work on some of this stuff. And I think that's even a beautiful thing, too.
Cool. All right. Quick one. What happens when my old hosting platform shuts down? Can I completely transfer my podcast here? If by here, what you're saying is Podpage. So Podpage is not a podcast host. We take the information from your host and from your RSS feed, and we build a website around it. And so we don't host audio files. I feel like there's too many people out there already doing that really, really well for us to focus a lot of time and resources there. I'd rather focus time and resources on things like this, actually getting people to come to your website and teaching about SEO and building the pages to be SEO friendly. So if your old hosting platform shuts down, recommendation. And again, I'm thinking like, this is not a very specific question, because you could be talking about my old web hosting platform or podcast hosting platform. In the context of web hosting platform, I would recommend moving it just to any other web hosting platform, whether it's Spotify for podcasters or Buzzsprout or Libsyn or Captivate or Transistor. They're all great. So look on that. And then if you're talking about like your old web hosting platform, you're not really transferring anything. You just create a site on Podpage. And so hopefully that answers that.
She was talking about the podcast hosting, I think. So I think you answered that.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to quickly reference this. I don't really know what Fix Your Eyes means, but the idea that the idea of the elite plan, and we talked about this in the last one about sort of why we created it, is there actually is a lot of SEO tools inside the elite plan that are very specific to the elite plan. And so what you're able to do is you're able to open any episode page, any blog post, any video, and you're able to, in there, you can look at SEO analysis for that episode or blog post or video. And you can type in, here are the keywords that I'm going after. So you can say fly fishing Montana. And what Podpage will do is it will tell you, based on the content that you've written on that page, how likely it is that you're going to perform well for those keywords. And so I don't know what do it for me means, but that's our way of trying to help as much as possible. When it comes to like, if do it for me just means I want to put up a website and be first on Google, that's unfortunately the reason people are on first on Google is because they have spent a lot of time working on being first on Google, and it's not really a scalable automatic thing. We learned this through, there's so many examples we learned this, but someone was like, oh, my page isn't ranking well. And we looked at it and we're like, oh, it looks good. that page looks fine. It's ranking well for, you always use the Tony Hawk example, but it's ranking fine for the keywords that you seem to be going after, which is in your title. Well, I want people to be finding me because they're searching for Tony Hawk. And it's like, oh, that's not something that's automatic or clear or understandable because they didn't put that in the title. The reason they weren't ranking was because they didn't have it in the title. They didn't have it in their meta tags. They just put like the best pro skateboarder. Once we have that input, then we can give a lot of output on advice on how to make it better. And that's kind of what the Podpage tools are geared for. It's like, you need to give a little bit of input to be like, here's what I want. And then we can tell you how to get it and help you get it. But without knowing what you want, it's impossible to give advice. So anyway,
that's SEO in a nutshell though. The whole damn thing is that there is not even like, to the point of the AI question before, there isn't a software right now that you can just put your URL in and it'll just spit out, hey, just write all these 11 things. It just doesn't exist yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe one day it'd be sweet, especially if I'm going to try to use it, save a bunch of time, but it's just not there yet. It is about the input you're putting in and taking that. That's why you saw us talking about like literally Googling stuff. I think it's one of that like easiest, obvious steps that most people forget.
Yeah. And honestly, like, this is your edge, because the vast majority of podcasters, the hope is I'll start putting content out there and people will magically find it and I will get a huge audience and then I will magically get sponsorships and then then success will come. But like, the edge is most people are just kind of hoping it happens for them. A very small percentage of people are focusing on making sure it happens for them. And so by actually putting time and effort into this stuff, you're really getting ahead of a lot of other people who aren't actually going to get there. I mean, people hear, the rare success stories of, oh, so-and-so started podcasting and they got, CNN linked to them and their podcast exploded, or the podcast was doing well. And then the host started dating Taylor Swift and now they're number one, right? No, most people don't have those opportunities that can kind of drop in. And so it is amazing to see when someone says, oh, my podcast isn't really ranking for the keywords I want, but they haven't done anything to rank for them. And then they just take a little bit of time. They chat with, people like Clarity, and they get the advice and they start targeting their keywords a little bit more. They start realizing like showing up for business podcast is going to be pretty hard, but there's actually really good search volume in business podcast Cleveland. And so when they start focusing on business podcast Cleveland and then they start ranking higher, suddenly Google starts saying, hey, this is actually a good site. And then maybe they're every once in a while on business podcast because they're already showing that they're an expert in Cleveland. So it takes time, but not a lot of people are doing it, which is what the edge is, that if you actually put the time and effort into doing it. So,
well, compounding off what you just said, though, there's an interesting opportunity too. Like, as you just took it from business podcast to business in Cleveland, if you really know who you want your listener to be and specifically what you want the end game to be, like, are you trying to grow a subscription list? Are you trying to sell products? Are you trying to do nothing other than network? That's actually helpful, right? If you know what your goal is, you can reverse engineer that for even SEO success. I just wanted to piggyback on that because the extra thought you put into this is how you get the most out of it.
Sorry, Dave's coming back.
No, I like that. I like that.
We're at time, but we've got just a couple more questions, so we can go through it.
Yeah, I think I was responding to Mike in the chat on this one. So it isn't more likely necessarily, and I kind of answered it in text, but sometimes blog titles are more intuitive to someone's actual search. And I think David actually mentioned this earlier. Some of those episode titles might have a number of an episode and maybe a name here or there and have some repetition to them. So it's just not as good for search as if you changed it, which you are able to do so, right? You're able to edit that and do that. And I think to Mike's point, he was wondering, like, is it only blogs that it's going to index first? No, episode pages absolutely get picked up. They're structured to get picked up. But it's not a one-to-one like that, like blog better than episode page. We actually feel very strongly about what the episode pages are. Brendan talking about Tony Hawk, it was just about changing the title of the page to actually rank higher of that episode page.
Quick to DJ, March 19th looks like it's the next one. March 19th, 10 a.m. I think we're trying to do these, the third Tuesday of every month is I think the cadence. So it's March 19th. We'll send that out in, in our normal weekly newsletter and stuff like that and let people know ahead of time. All right. We got a few more. This is a big question, and maybe it's something I think we talked a little bit about this, in the first one, but maybe, these kind of questions help us figure out what we should be talking about in these. So, do you all have a quick
Go ahead, Dave.
or quickish sort of way to think about this or organize thoughts around it?
Yeah, I think really quickly, the title, the focus keyword, the unique key phrase, the SEO title, the URL, having the keyword in there is going to help you rank. It's it's kind of the how do I rank for that keyword? You just want it. If you're like a limo company in Orlando, your URL is /limo Orlando, it's only going to improve your chance of doing it, versus if you're going to say, something that's not, like, if you call it services, Google doesn't know what those are. So sometimes you kind of just that the putting out the keyword, being obvious about the keyword, helping Google understand what that page is about, just being obvious about it can just kind of help you out. Over time, you can get a little more crafty with what you're doing, but definitely in the beginning, when you're really trying to go after some of these keywords, just really using that keyword in the title, in the URL, first time on the page, some variations in your first paragraph, it's just, I call it best practice at that point. So
quick screen share just to show. Let's see, screen share. All right, I just posted this on our help desk, and so if you head over to the help desk and you look up Podpage SEO webinar, you'll have links to the two things that we're doing. Just, I know that questions come up. So let's see. Quick, the relationship between Podpage and Clarity. Actually, we've met through a bunch of different channels. We started working together on helping Podpage SEO, helping in a bunch of different stuff. They've helped do audits of the platform to make sure that the actual code is written in a way that gives podcasters the best shot in getting onto Google and all that. So we've been working together, and we basically started brainstorming, like, all right, well, there's thousands of people who use Podpage who have a lot of these questions. Why don't we start figuring out a way to connect you all to all those podcasters? So there's no business relationship or anything outside of we're friends. We have a lot of respect for each other, and we're trying to figure out a way to bring their knowledge to the Podpage community in a scalable way. So DJ, we talked about the next date. I think we have just a couple more, and then we can always do stuff after. These questions are long, so they're covering up David. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm trying to move actually, maybe I can.
That's awesome. No, I like it. I was like, what if I was this tall? That'd be awesome. Okay, so this is examples you could put in terms of, say, writing a blog. One thing I can give, and I think we are going to consider putting it into the 5 hacks for next month. One of the things we learned that is a fun thing is, if you're using ChatGPT specifically, but it works in Copilot as well, try to tell it what it's supposed to be doing before you ask it a question. Hey, you're a professional fisherman. I keep going to the fishing because somebody has a fishing podcast on the platform. I know that, but tell it, like, you're a pro fisher GPT, right? And you're going to be writing articles. Frame it. Actually give it a few pieces of information. The more information you give it, one little hack you could do as well is start with that. Hey, you're a fishing expert writing blogs. What questions should you ask it? Meaning, like, you're going to ask it to ask you questions to make sure you get the best results. It literally will spit you out questions. You answer those questions back in. What that's called is you're training it. You're training it. You've heard that phrase a lot. That's what the people did to create GPT. But the best users take that extra, to Brendan's point, right? You spend that extra time on all this stuff. You spend a few extra minutes training it, you're going to get a much better output. And I think that's where you can really kind of level up your game, to Fawn's point and a few other people, where time is a massive issue. That's where you spend 10 minutes training. You might be able to get 3 or 4 amazing outputs that are damn near postable, other than about 15 minutes putting your voice on it, right? Which, again, we very much encourage you putting your own sauce on it, because of David's point that it is regurgitated content from what else was out there. So hope that was somewhat beneficial.
Yeah. And I will say that a little sort of, I would say, preview, and there's no date or specifics around this, but I'm working on a tool within Podpage that will help you do this. So you don't have to go and figure out the AI tools.
Ooh,
but again, it sort of comes back to like the automated SEO with the, the fix your eyes comment. What that is like, the problem with a lot of these tools is they end up creating the same content for everyone. or content that is the same as something else that's out there. And I mean, it just makes sense. If you find a way to cheat to get content for free from the AI, that Google eventually will figure out that you did that and discount the content. Like, there's no question that Google is not going to be like, wow, there's so much great new content on the internet, let's index it all and make it all as equally valuable. Like, Google is smart enough to start understanding what's good and what's AI. And so to hit on that point with Craig again, like, you need to go back and actually make it yours. If you want it to rank for SEO. Now, I'll use an example. Like, I use AI a ton to post articles to our help desk. So, I get to type in like, all right, this new feature I just did, here's the 4 things it does, here's how it works, here how I set it up. It takes me like 2 minutes. It generates a really nice, long, detailed article about how it works. And I generally will, make sure it's right, copy and paste it, because I don't care about SEO for that. It's fine that that's just sort of AI created language. It just makes it easier for the users. But if I was trying to actually rank with that stuff, I would spend a lot more time editing it. But it's a really good like template or base. It still saves you a ton of time. So
yeah, we like AI. We like it.
Yeah. I think I'm sure I missed a couple questions. It's in this UI. I'm trying to like look at questions and star them, but also make sure that I'm getting new questions. And so I apologize if we missed anything. We're doing this again in a month, March 19th. The video will be up on our help desk. We're going to do a lot more stuff like this. Here's just one last one from someone who I don't think we've gotten a question from, and then we can wrap.
If I post YouTubers. Are we talking about YouTube Shorts on this one? That's what I was saying, like a YouTube version. If we're talking long form versus short form YouTube, the description text, title, and tags, we call it the 4 T's for YouTube. It's description text, title, tags, and thumbnail. Those are the 4 ways you can move the needle heavily on any YouTube content. Shorts is a little different. You don't have the thumbnail that same way, so you're really dedicated into that post text. Shorts, they're right now serving at a higher frequency, so you're getting some free organic reach. So you want to get as many of those in as possible. So if I post a YouTube version of the podcast and I use short to promote, how much time? David, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly just say though that shorts and the long form kind of show up differently. Yes, shorts do show up, but they don't tend to rank in the same way YouTube search, the same way a regular video does. So you can use the shorts to promote your long form. That would be the idea, is that the last slide or the last part of it say, hey, listen to the rest of this podcast here. And then link over the main YouTube channel or something like that to put there. That would be like how you kind of do it. But yeah, having the keyword specific title probably for the long form would make the most sense.
All right, this is the last question. So
does it work having both English and Polish in the blog? Well, if it's in Polish, it's David. Go ahead, speak to that.
Yeah, you would want to have a different page for it, right? So Google, each page is usually language specific. So you'd have an English page and a Polish page. So you'd have a translation of it that way. That's just how Google intakes things. It's best to have a unique page, because Google uses something called hreflang, which is that it understands what the page is. Is it, because for English, there's UK English, there's US English, there's Canadian English. And while they all sound the same, you're more saying, hey, I'm looking to more show up in Canada than I am in the US, because that would probably be who you serve or what you do. Or if you're in the UK, you don't serve the US, you could set that. It'd be the same thing probably with Poland. With Polish stuff, you'd have your Polish specific pages. That could be the same as your English, but just obviously translated.
And I will just when you start getting into, I guess I'll say something and then I'll ask a question. So I think one of the question was like, should I go ahead and write the blog post? If I've written an English blog post, but my audience has learned Polish, should I also write a separate blog post in Polish, which I can extrapolate to if I'm targeting different languages for my podcast, should I be creating different blog posts for the content? And then I think I would probably have to ask that person, well, does your podcast get published in different languages? And if so, maybe you have the Spanish website for it and the English website, but that aside, I will say when it coms to these like hreflang tags for different languages, for different blog posts, like just as a way. That is something that you might end up needing a different, more sophisticated website platform for, because Podpage doesn't currently have like sort of you can maintain content in lots of different languages and have different pages posted for it and all that. So, but I guess is it necessary, or how should they structure it if it's multilingual?
I mean, it can help. On paper, you could have your English language could help your Polish language page, as long as you have them hooked up correctly. So there's definitely a benefit there. I would definitely make sure, I'm just saying just to say, but I would definitely make sure that you're translating it like correctly, from like natively versus using like an automated tool or whatever, because at that point you're probably going to lose the proper wording and grammar. But they benefit each other. You can use that as an SEO tool.
Housekeeping. I was trying to set up the link for the next one of these. I haven't been able to do it yet. So in an hour, if you go to seo.podpage.com, you'll get directed to a registration page for the next one of these. Craig, David, we should remind. I have like a list of things I should do before we go on air.
Hey, we're getting there. Number two.
SEO.podpage.com. In an hour, you can register for the next one of these. The links are in the help desk. Thank you so much to Craig and David for doing this again. And please also, like, you can shoot me a note, Brendan at Podpage, or go and chat within the Podpage dashboard. Like, we really want feedback on these to make sure that the hope is by the second round of these, when we do the second batch of this content, that each one is slightly different, but it's optimized to what you want. And it's kind of, we figured out what the model is. So please keep giving feedback. It's really, really helpful.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.